What's up? What's up? All right, we're going live. Here we are. Hello. I'm Terry Barentsen. If you're new here, I make YouTube videos about cycling. Lately, I've been trying to interview people. This is one of those interviews. This is Jason Gallacher. He is the owner of Affinity Cycles. He's also a highly established track racer. And why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah.
That's my little half-assed introduction.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, my name's Jason Gallacher. I own, operate Affinity Cycles. We're here in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a bike racer, hack bike racer, semi-pro, masters racer, local bike racer, bicycle enthusiast. You know, I do bikes.
Right on, right on. So those of you who don't know Affinity Cycles, they're a bike company and manufacturing cycling company, but you guys used to be a bike shop, right? Back in the day.
Yeah, so Affinity started in 2007 in Williamsburg, New York, in Brooklyn. And yeah, we sort of started as a bike shop and a bicycle brand. We opened as a bike shop with our low pro track frame set, and things just kind of went from there.
Low pro, that's interesting. That's a low pro bike.
Yeah, it's always riding a low pro now. Got the low pro.
The low pro was the first bike. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
The same geometry, everything, or has
it yeah. A lot of people ask that. The low pro has not changed at all really since. Actually, no. The very first ones had a 26.0 seat post. But all other ones have had 27.2, and we've changed the fork like a few years ago. But other than that, the geometry stayed the same. Everything's pretty much the same.
Sweet. So you went from bike shop to no longer being a bike shop, and how did that transition go? Like what influenced that? What was going on in the industry to make that change? Or
it was a bit of a tough choice. I struggled with it for a little while. I teetered on, still trying to keep the shop open and also do the brand. The brand really began to take off. Everything was sort of grassroots back then. Not to say it was that long ago, but initially we didn't do online sales. We didn't even have a website in the beginning. I mean, that just kind of was a bit of a different time. And then we started having dealers. And then distributors, and things really began to take off. So the operation was transitioning from just the bike shop to the bicycle brand, and then eventually I made the choice just to do the bicycle brand. The bike shop was great, and it always was a successful business, but I knew that my future was in Affinity, and that that was sort of the direction I should be heading.
Nice, and the sun's back. Look at that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful in the city today.
Sorry about this. We're going to have to make a few adjustments now and again. Just so we don't blow things up behind our heads with the sun pouring in.
Tiny desk interview.
Exactly. Oh, look at this. And our light got kicked around. All right. Amateur hour. Yeah, so that was way before I was here, and I'm going to jump around a little bit.
Sure.
I was, riding fixed gear bikes and track bikes, and I was kind of at that time when all that was happening. I actually came to New York on a trip, brought my bike, and I saw Affinity, the shop on Grand, because I was staying at a girl's house actually my friends were staying at a girl's house across the street. So I was like, oh, there's Affinity. I've heard about that place because of John Prawley's website back in the day before the Radivis was called Prawley is Not Probably. And he was documenting this like fixed gear, before it was called Fixed Gear Freestyle, kind of like group meetup under the BQE called Peel Sessions. Tell us a little bit about Peel Sessions from your point of view, because I was just watching from the web. The web.
Yeah, people went to websites back then. It was. I think overall the what was happening in New York at the time. The scene was huge, and Peel Sessions was kind of like a celebration of that. John Prawley sort of started these, group, catch-ups under the BQE, a few blocks from our shop. And so, everyone pretty much would go and hang out and, fixed gear freestyle was, just starting out. And, we were even doing like foot down competitions and skids. And, it was really just kind of like a big hang. And it was a really good time in the scene. And that's also, what made, the shop kind of the pulse of, what was happening. And it was just a really good time to, hang around. And a lot of people, even if some bike messengers, some racers, and, people who were just kind of like into track bikes, would get together and hang out. It was just kind of like one big group at the time.
It was crazy. I wish I should have pulled up some videos for you guys. It's also like a DIY skate, like a bunch of ledges
Definitely.
and quarter pipes that are under the structure. And the BQE is like a Brooklyn Queens Expressway. It's like a highway. So it's elevated. So there's all these structures holding up the elevated highway. So they built like, DIY quarter pipes and all kinds of like ledges. And at one time, I wasn't here for this. This is what I saw on the internet. There was a huge quarter pipe that went against the wall, and it was massive.
That was wood.
Yeah, and it was made of wood. And it was kind of like what solidified the idea about New York, just like you can do whatever the fuck you want to do kind of thing.
Yeah.
At that time anyways, it felt that way to me, and I was like, man, it looks like they're having a blast. Anyways, I was just super envious seeing some of that stuff because I was in San Francisco, like, what's going on?
A lot of the scene, it didn't really, I don't want to say it started in New York, but I think the pulse really generated from New York at the time. And some of the early track bike, the scene kind of started where a bunch of messengers went over to Japan and began, went to a couple of events and then brought back a bunch of Karen bikes. And, that group kind of, ballooned and became bigger. And, then the track bike got, bigger and bigger. And, it was a thing people raced and a thing people messengered on and a thing people, rode on the streets, and then people started doing tricks and wheelies, and it just kind of evolved and evolved and evolved, and that kind of explosion began to sort of happen. Back then alley cats it was kind of like weird to do alley cats if you were on a bike messenger, and people then who weren't bike messengers started doing pretty good in alley cats, and now it's totally socially acceptable to do an alley cat, like no matter who you are, and Peel Sessions kind of helped bridge the gap, and John Prawley helped bridge the gap, and a bunch of people, a bunch of influencers. But, overall it was a much bigger kind of like social gathering at the time. And I think now that's really kind of happening all over the world. And now there's different things that have happened that have kind of like helped, carry on track bikes or fixies now. And, that whole thing that is.
There was a lot of, there still are a lot of heavy hitters in New York, but at that time it was like, a lot of people who I saw in the scene were doing good things. They're still kind of up to doing good things and still growing things, which is cool. Like during that time, I'm talking about the movie now. There was a film that came here and that you were involved in. There was like some friends, some people who were stunt doubles that are still doing things now. Like, can you tell us a little bit about the film and how it happened and what it is, how it happened, how you got involved?
Premium Rush. So, a lot of things, again, surrounding the scene things were happening, and, they decided to make a bike messenger movie called Premium Rush. And, fortunately, the prop masters and the directors of Premium Rush were, wanted to try to keep it as core to the scene as they could. And so, they started doing some research, and all avenues or many avenues started pointing my way. They started, they called us and initially started asking us some rough questions on how we might be able to help. And then, a few meetings later, we pitched, having Affinity as the main character's bike. I remember at the time, Brooklyn Machine Works, I think, was up for it. Geek House did a bike, I think, as well. I think the final may have been a Geek House, a Brooklyn Machine Works, and an Affinity. And I just kind of really hit it off with the prop master and the director. And we, at the time, they had some ideas on what they were looking for, and they really loved Stone Tone's bike. He was totally, give props to Stone Tone, that the Premium Rush bike was Stone Tone's bike. We were going to use the Low Pro. initially, and so they wanted a bike that looked just like Tone's bike, and because Tone was, kind of like a like a heavy hitter in the scene and was doing lots of things and promoting races, and he was like one of the new fresh faces in the scene, and he had been around a while and was doing good things, and so we made a bike that looked like Tone's bike, and then they decided they wanted to use the Metropolitan. They thought because of the slope that all they were going to see was the top of the character's head, and I tried to explain to them, that wouldn't be the case, but they wanted the Metropolitan, and that was sort of, one thing led to the other, and yeah, we got really involved in the movie.
That's great. Yeah. So you guys got involved. I know Tom was a stunt double. Putting Tom on the spot here, or shouting him out.
Tom LaMarche.
Tom LaMarche. He was also relevant in the online videos I was seeing at Pill Sessions, and then I find out later that he was a stunt double in Premium Rush. And I actually just saw him recently. He's still, because of that film, he's still an active stunt double for movies.
Yeah.
And he's doing more things than just bike stuff, but he's just saw him recently. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I think Austin got involved somehow, and then Austin Horse, and then Kim, Kim Nonstop. She's got a full career from it. They people had the opportunity to, work on the film, and they wound up clocking enough hours to get into SAG. And so Tom was a stunt double, and then that wound up, opening avenues for him to, take advantage of the opportunity and, get a career from it. So lots of people, sort of prospered from it.
So we bring to a close the story of rigid control through the unceasing research and the highest quality.